Hi friends, welcome to IAS and College Connect YouTube channel. In this videos, we are going to discuss about JDBC with DAO layer. So let's see what is meant by DAO layer. So DAO layer it stands for Data Access Objects. The main purpose of using this DAO layer is to separate the business logic from the data interactions logics. Here, how the working flow will be means. So the main thing, so we are going to deal with all the UI interactions and then that interactions will be going to move to this business logic. Then business logic is going to interact with the DAO layer. This DAO layer is going to be interact with the database. This UA is nothing but the interactions from the user. It may be the graphical user interface or it may be the console. Here in this pattern, in this example, we are not going to use the business logics. Here we are going to have the structure like this. First we are having the main class. In the main class where the user interactions based all the logics we are going to write, that is getting the input from the user and then pass the input to data DAO layer for the insertion operations or retrieval operations. All the interactions we are going to use the main class. Then this main class is going to be interact with the DAO layer. So here we are going to write all the logics, that is the insert logic, insertion or updations, deletions, all the operations we are going to write inside this DAO layer only. Deletions and then retrieval. So all these operations we are going to write it inside. But here we are going to have one interface along with this DAO. Okay. So here we are going to have the interface. That interface will going to hold all the abstract method for performing all the CRUD operations. So, and one more thing, so we are going to have the one entity classes which is used to transfer the data from the DAO layer to the main class or main class to the DAO layer. So we are going to have the one entity classes. So this entity classes is hold all the relevant variables for performing the database relevant operations for carrying all the data from main class to the DAO layer or DAO layer to the main classes. So then we are going to have one database. So all the insertion, deletion, retrieval operation and update operations we are going to be written inside this DAO layer. That DAO layer is going to be interact with the database. That database is nothing but MySQL. Okay. So this is a flow. Right. Now we are moving to this implementation part of the DAO layer. So first I'm going to create one package. Package name is nothing but JDBC DAO. This videos is continuations of the previous videos. In previous videos, we discussed about JDBC, basic JDBC operations. In case if you not watch this video, please go and watch and before you are going to start this video. So under this JDBC DAO layer, I'm going to create all these classes. So first I'm going to hold the class which is used for storing all the data relevant logics. Okay, so that is DAO implementation. Okay, then I'm going to have one main class where all the user interaction is going to be happen. Then I'm just going to hold one interface, that is DAO interface. Here and one more thing, we are going to have one entity classes. So which is used to carry the data from one locations to the other location. Okay, so student registration. This entity class is nothing but student registration. Here under the students registration, okay, so I'm just going to give all the variables, whatever the variables I'm going to have. Okay, so first I'm just going to create a private int id and then private string student name. As I already suggest that we need to use the camel cases. Student name and then private string department, student department. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a getter and setter and then constructor. Okay, first I'm going to create an empty constructor and I'm going to create a constructor with all these three arguments. So section, getter and setter, all these three variables. Okay, then I'm going to create one toStrings method. That's it. We done. Okay, so in this Pojo classes, we are having three variables. What are the three variables is? One is ID, another one is student's name, another one is student's department. Okay. So now before I'm going to proceed all these operations, I'm just going to create one data for holding all the database relevant connections details. I'm just going to create one more classes, that is database connection. What the purpose of this particular class is? So this classes is going to hold all the credential, that is to performing the operations on the database we need the credential, right? Okay, so for that we are going to create this particular classes. Inside this particular classes, and what I'm going to do, this class is used to return the key to open the database. Okay, so for that I'm just going to create one method which is going to be public. So the method name is going to be, key is going to be connection static, and then return type is nothing but it is a connection. Okay, so return type is connection. What this class is going to do, it is going to be return the key to open the particular database. Okay, so here I'm going to create a method name is nothing but um, uh, get connection. You can give any name, get connection to open db. So what this method is going to be received as a object, receive as an argument means, so it is going to be receive url string url and then string user name and then string password. Okay, so these are the argument which this particular method is going to be received. Once this particular argument is received, so what it is going to be written, it is going to be written the key to open the database. So for that we are going to use a driver manager. Okay, so in this previous videos, so I give the much detailed explanations about this particular method, driver manager dot get connection. What is the purpose of it? So it is used to uh, give the key to open the database. Okay, to access the database we need the url, and then that should be followed by the username, and then that should be followed by the password. Okay, so once we give all these values to this particular method, what this method is going to do, it is going to be return the key to open the database, right? So we need to import this. So java.sql, we need to import from java.sql.connection. So now you see we created the entity classes as of now, and then we also created the database connection. Okay, so why it is returning error, driver manager.get connection. Okay, so we need to use a throws keyword. Okay, so here you see, so we need to surround this block with the try catch, or else we are going to use this throws keyword, throws SQL exception, throws SQL exception. That's it. Okay, so we return this particular class. What this purpose of this class is used to. So when we are going to pass all the three argument to this particular method, it is going to be return the key to open the database. So now you see, we done this we done this Pojo classes, and we done the database connection. Okay, so the key to open the database. Now the next thing we are going to create the method, all the method whichever is used to perform some operations on the database. Okay, so what are the methods we are going to use means first we are going to add the values, right? Okay, so for that I'm just going to create a method. So public, so void, so which is used to add the students, right? Okay, so add students. The method name which I'm going to create is add student. Here I'm going to pass the Pojo classes in argument. Okay, so that student registration SR. Okay, so then I'm going to retrieve the values by ID. Okay, so for that I'm just going to use the return type as the Pojo class name, which is nothing but student registration. Student registration. Okay, so it's going to be get student by ID. Here we are going to pass single object, that is student ID. Okay, so ID. Okay, so then we are going to create all the abstract method. Okay, so here then we are going to return all the students, right? Okay, so for that we are going to create a method public list. Okay, so it's going to be return list of all the students, student registration. Here I'm going to create method for returning all the students. Okay, so get all student. Okay, so here we are not going to pass any argument. Okay, why? Because it is going to be written all the students. Okay, so there is no need to pass any particular arguments. Then once we are adding returning by ID list all the students, then we are going to perform the update operation, right? Okay, so public and then update operation. Here I'm going to return void and then update student. Here I'm going to pass the student details. Okay, so I'm just going to be pass the student registration object. Okay, so which is going to be SR update. Okay, so SR update. You can give any name. Okay, so update. Then we are going to perform the delete operation. Public. So void delete student. Okay, so here I'm going to pass one particular student ID. Okay, so ID. That's it. Okay, so here you see we are going to create all the operations. Okay, so that is for insertions we are going to use the add students, and for retrieving we are going to use get by students by ID, and then for performing this retrieving all the students I'm going to use the method get all students. For performing the update operations I'm going to use the update students method, where I'm going to pass the student entire students details, and then I'm just going to pass performing the deletion operations. I'm going to use delete students method. Here I'm going to pass ID as an argument. Okay, so now you see we created all the abstract method. Now we need to implement all the abstract method on the DAO implementation class. So here I'm just going to write the class that implement this interface. Implement this interface. What is the interface? Which is nothing but DAO. Okay, so DAO interface. Okay, so once we done this, it asks us to implement all the unimplement method which we are having on this particular DAO interface. Okay, so now I'm going to click this bulb button and press add the unimplement method. Now you see we got all this method over here, right? Okay, so here what we are going to do, we are going to write all the logics now. Now we are going to write all the logics. The first thing what we required is we need the connections, right? Connections key. Okay, so for performing all the database operations. So who is holding the connection key? This database connection. Okay, so you noted one thing. This is a static method. To access this particular method, we need to use a class name dot method name. Okay, so for that, in the DAO implementation where we are going to perform all the database operations, we need to access it. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one connection and then con equal to null, right? Okay, so now you see, now I'm going to import this package java.sql. So here, when this particular classes get created, okay, so we need the connection key to open it, right? Okay, so I'm just going to create public access specifier. Okay, so and I'm going to mention the class name, that is a constructor. Okay, so when this particular object is going to be get called, so we are going to initiate the connection. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create this constructor is going to be type of connection C. Okay, so here I'm going to mention this dot con equal to con. Now, to pass this values, that is a complete credential to open the database, we need to uh, get the key, right? So I'm going to the main class, the main method. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to create one connection C equal to, okay, so here you see this is a class name, right? Okay, so first we need to access the class name and then that should be followed by the method name. So here first class name and then that should be followed by connection. Here I'm going to pass all the connection details. Okay, so here I'm going to create one variable string URL equal to and then uh, connection URL and then password string username and password. Okay, so username equal to so some values and then string password equal to, okay, so here the URL which I'm going to use JDBC colon MySQL colon double slash localhost colon 3306. As of now we are not created any database, so I'm leaving it, and then username which I'm going to create it is root and then password is 1234. So now we are moving to this database. We are going to create a one database. So here I'm going to create and database, create database, and then database is nothing but student info, student info, right? Okay, so I'm just going to create a database. Now you see databases get created. Here I'm going to pass a database name over here. Okay, so now I'm just going to pass all this value as an argument to this get connections to open DB method. Okay, so here I'm just going to pass all the values to this particular method. So when I'm going to call this particular method, it is going to be return the key to open the database, right? So that C is going to be holded. I'm going to pass the C values to this particular constructor. Okay, so here I'm moving to this main dot class. I'm going to import the packages now. Okay, so that's it. Okay, so here, so it is going to be throw an SQL exception. So we need to surround this with a try and catch block, or else here I'm just going to be write throws SQL exception. SQL exception. We can write it like this, or else so we can surround it with SQL exception. Or else we can surround this entire block with try and then catch block. In the catch block I'm just going to be mention the relevant exception. Like this we can use either by using the throws keyword or else by using the catch block. Okay, so you can go with any way. So here I'm going to use a SQL exception, SQLE. So here I'm going to use SQLE dot print stack. Okay, or else we can use sys out. Inside this I'm just going to print the SQLE. That's it. So we can go with any one of this method. Okay, so now you see we are going to pass the C, okay, to this particular DAO implementation. How it is possible? Okay, so here you see I'm just going to create an object of this particular class. Okay, so in this particular class I'm just going to pass this value. Let's see how to do it. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, I need to access. This is the main class, right? From this main classes only, we are going to interact with the DAO layer for performing this operation. Okay, so here you see this main class. This main class is going to interact with DAO, right? Okay, so this DAO layer is contains all the CRUD operation. Okay, so insertion operation, Okay, so retrieval operations. So retrieve all operations, all the method this DAO layer is having. So I need to access it. I need to access this particular method, all this method from the main class. Then only I can perform all the operations, right? Update and delete. Okay. So this DAO class will hold all this particular method. So we need to create the object of the DAO class in the main class. Then only we can perform all the operation, right? So that what I'm going to do, I'm going to create an object. Okay. So in this, I'm just going to, while I'm creating the object, I'm going to call the constructor that with the argument, constructor with the argument. Okay. So that argument is nothing but this C. Okay, so now you see I'm just going to create an object of this particular DAO implementation class. Okay, so here I'm just going to create DAO implementation in the main class. I'm just going to create DAO implementation. The object is nothing but DAO IMPL. Okay, so equal to new DAO implementation. Here I'm going to pass C as an argument. Okay, so now what it is going to be happen? It's going to be check the relevant constructor is there in the DAO implementation or not. That object is going to be what? C. C is a type of what? Connection. Okay, so here you see DAO implementation is there. Here you see we're having the one constructor. That constructor is going to be receive C as an argument. That is C is nothing but connection. Here also you see connection con. Here the C is going to be what? Con now. Okay, so now we are passing the values that will be received by this local variable con, and then it is assigned to this global variable con. Okay, now we forgot to include one more steps in this particular thing. We forgot to include the driver name. That is the first step, right? The class dot for name. Okay, so here we are going to mention the driver name. Okay, so we forgot to include this. Okay, so that is um, what is the statement we need to give? Com dot mysql dot cj dot jdbc dot driver. Okay, so this class is going to throw an SQL exception, class not found exception. Okay, so here we are going to include class not found exception. Class not found, class not found exception. Okay, so we need to include this class not foundation found class not found exceptions on here also. Okay, so we are going to use or statement. Okay, so instead of creating one more catch block, I'm just going to use or statement, and I'm going to use the class not found exception. Okay, so this catch block can able to catch SQL exception or class not found exception. Okay, so this catch block is used to capture both type of exception. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. Okay, so now why it is throwing error. Okay, so we need to put one more flower packet. Okay, done. Okay, so now you see what we did is, okay, so we created DAO implementation class. Inside this, we have created the connection con equal to null. Then we are going to create one constructor. In this constructor, we are going to create one constructor with argument. The argument is nothing but connection or connection type. And then when we are going to pass the connection values to this particular constructor, this constructor is going to assign this con to this class variable con. Now, in the main class, what we did is, so we have created uh, three variables. Okay, so for storing all the credential, URL, username, password, and then we are going to be pass all the values to the database connection dot get connections. We are going to pass it. Once we pass all this value, it is going to be return the values. Okay, so then we are going to store this key. The return values is what? Key to open the database. So now we are where we are going to be perform all the database operations. We are going to perform all the database operations on the DAO implementation. So we need to pass the key to the DAO implementation, so that we are going to create an object of this DAO implementation, and then we are passing it. So now what we are going to do, now we are going to perform all the operations. We are going to write the logics now. So now what we are going to do, we are going to write the logics which is used to perform the insert operation. Okay, so here what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write one variable which is going to be what? String SQL. Okay, so here in this SQL statement, I'm just going to write the statement insert into table name. As of now, we are not created any table. I'm just going to write the table name, which is going to be what? Registration. Okay, so inside this, I'm just going to pass two column name. Okay, so as of now, we are going not created any table. Now I'm going to create a table, then we can proceed. Okay, so I'm just going to choose the database. So now I'm going to create a table, create table. Table name is nothing but registration. Inside this, I'm just going to create one column name, which is going to be ID or student ID. I'm just going to create this one is going to be what? Student ID. Okay, so student ID. Okay, so data type is what? Int, and then values is going to be what? Auto increment, and then primary key. Okay, then. So we are going to have another variable which is called as a name. Okay, so which is going to be what? Varchar of 255, and then department. Okay, so department is what? This is also going to be what? Varchar of 255. Done. Okay, so as of now, we created one table registrations. Okay, so it is going to be comes under the student info. Okay, so now I'm going to run this. Sorry, database we choose. Okay, so table is get created. If I'm going to click the refresh button, you will be find this table is going to be get created. So now I'm just going to use that particular table name. What is the table name? It is registration, right? Okay, so registration. Inside this, I'm just going to pass all the values. Column name, comma. What is another one? Which is going to be a department, comma, department. Department. And then values we are going to pass. Values. And then I'm going to put the question marks. That's it. Now you see, so we written this query. Now we want to perform the insert operations. That is, we need to write the coding for executing this particular line. So what we are going to do, so we are going to use a try with resources block. So previously we used the try and catch block. So when there is any error in the particular try block, so we need to close the connections in the final block. But what the try with resources is going to do, so it's going to be automatically closed when there is an error in while performing the insert operation. So for that, I'm just going to use the try and resources block, try with resource block. So here, this is a syntax for try with writing the try with the resources block. Inside this, we are going to write the queries. So we are going to write the query prepare statement, prepare statement ps equal to here we need to key we need the key to open the database, right? Okay, so which variable is holding the key? Count, right? Okay, so con dot so prepare statement, con dot prepare statement. Inside this, we are going to pass the query. So this particular query is going to be get executed. Along with this, I want, so when there is a particular insert is happening, it need to return some values, right? Okay, so that is auto-generated key I required. So for this particular data, okay, so I'm just going to use, for that, I'm just going to use statement dot return generated keys. That's it. Okay. So when this particular query is going to be get executed, it is going to be generate auto generated values, right? Okay. So here is the when I'm going to perform this insert operations on this particular table, insert into then registration, insert into the registration. I'm going to pass a name, and then department. Okay. So and I'm going to pass some values. Here I'm going to pass a name as Vinod Kumar and then department as CSC. If I'm going to pass it like this, I'm going to insert this value into the database. Now you see the data is getting inserted. I want to check the values so that I'm using the select query. Here you see when I am going to perform the insert operation, this values automatically get incremented. I want to retrieve this auto generated key so that I'm going to use this statement dot return generated key. Okay, so this line when we are going to perform this insert operation, so along with this insert statement, it is going to be return the auto generated key 1 or 2 or 3. Okay, so now I'm going to pass the values to this two question mark. Okay, so for that I'm just going to use ps dot so both are string, right? Okay, so that I'm just going to use a set string. Inside this I'm just going to use for the first question mark I'm going to use 1 comma. Okay, so sr is a object is holding the entire data, right? Okay, so that I'm just going to pass sr dot. Okay, so get name, student name. Okay, so first question mark for the name, right? Second question mark for the department. So ps dot set string. So inside this, I'm just going to be passed the next one. Okay, so there is sr dot get department. That's it. Okay, so now see why it is throwing an exception means, okay, so this one is going to be throw an SQL exception, so that we are going to use keyword throws SQL exception. Okay, so but why it is throwing exception on here also? Why? Because in the interface we are created add students, but we are not forgot we include this throws SQL exception. So I'm just moving to this interface. For all this method, I'm going to use the throws SQL exception keyword. Throws SQL exception for all this method. That's it. Okay, so here we are moving to this. Okay, so now you see the error is fine. Now you see we return the queries. Now we are going to perform the insert operation. For that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use ps dot execute update. So once the execution is done, so we are going to get the generated key, auto generated key, right? Okay, so for that I'm going to use a try with resources block. So inside this I'm just going to use the results set. Rs equal to who is holding the key, ps, right? Okay, so here inside this ps I'm just going to get the key. For that I'm going to use get generated keys. So it's going to return the generated keys. Okay, so I'm just going to check if rs dot. So I want to check whether the values is present or not. Okay, so here I'm going to use a next method. The next method is going to be written. If that is a data, it is going to be written, right? Okay, so if there is a next method is going to be written. If there is a data means it is going to be written true. Okay, so if there is a data, I'm just going to pass the ID to the Pojo classes. So here you see the Pojo classes object we are having is SR here, right? Okay, so that I'm just going to use SR dot set ID. So inside this, I need to pass the values, right? Okay, so here you see rs is the object which is holding the key, right? So I'm going to use rs dot. So I want to get the ID. Okay, so get int. So here it is going to be on the first one, right? Okay, so the first column. Okay, so that I'm just going to get that auto generated key. Okay, so now you see we perform the insert operations. Along with this, we are going to get the auto generated key for this particular query, particular data. Now we are proceeding to the next one. That is, what is the next method here we are having? The next method is get students by ID. Okay. So next one we are going to proceed to this to get students by ID. So this particular method. Okay. So here what we are going to do, first thing same. So we are going to use string, and then we are going to write the SQL query. Okay, so what is the SQL query? We are going to retrieve the data from the database. So that I'm just going to use a select query. Select, I'm going to return all the values. Okay, so I'm going to return all the values, so that I'm going to use a for star from. Okay, so then the table name. Okay, so what is the table name here we are using? The table name is nothing but registration. The table name is nothing but registration. Select star from registration. So where, okay, so what is the column for the ID? Column name is student ID. Okay, so here you see it's a student ID. I'm just copying it and pasting over here. Student ID equal to question mark. Now you see we are going to execute this query same as we are going to use try with the resources block. Okay, so here I'm going to write the try with the resources block for returning all the values. So here mm, try with resources block. So inside this, I'm going to write all the operations. Okay, so what operations we are going to perform? We are just going to retrieve the data which matches the argument values. So here inside this, I'm going to write the prepare statement. Prepare statement ps equal to, now we want to execute this query. Before that, we need the key to open it, right? Okay, so here you see we having the con is object. Okay, so con is holding the values, right? Okay, so here con dot con dot prepare statement. Inside this, we are going to pass the SQL query. Okay, so here I'm just going to inside this try block. I'm just going to why it is throwing error means same. It's need to throw SQL exception. Okay, so I'm just going to add this throws SQL exceptions for all the remaining methods in the implementation class. Done. Okay, now you see we done it. Okay, now I'm going to write the query. Already we written. We need to pass the values for this particular question mark. Okay, so ps dot so set it is integer, right? Set int of so the question mark only one question mark that is the first one we need to pass so that one comma so values we are going to receive as an argument. So I'm just going to pass the value as a second value as an argument. Now you see we done it. Okay, now we need to perform the execution operation. Okay, so I'm just going to use ps dot execute query. The method which is used for perform this retrieval operation is execute query. Okay, so it's going to return the values in the result set. I'm going to capture the values on the result set, result set here rs. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to check if there is a values or not. Okay, so I'm just going to check if values or not. Okay, so rs dot next. So this method, next method is going to return the values if there is any data is present. Okay, so here so I forgot to put equal to symbol. Okay, so here you see we return it. Okay, so now you see we are going to write Pojo class new. Sorry, here itself I can write return new student registration. Inside this, I'm going to pass all the values. In this Pojo classes, we are having the constructor, right? Okay, so inside this, we are having the constructor. First one is ID, second one is name, third one is department. So likewise, we need to pass in right order. Okay, rs dot get column and sorry get int. Okay, so get int here I'm going to pass the column and number. Okay, so get int of one and then rs dot so second one is string, right? Get string of column index is what? 2. So there is a column and we are having is 1, 2, 3. Okay. So 1 is for student ID, 2 is for name, 3 is for department. Okay. So I'm just going to pass rs dot get string of column and 3. So here you can also pass the column and name instead of pausing like this. Okay. So now you see we are if there is any data is present, it is going to be return the values. Okay. So to this particular method, in case if there is a no data is present, it is going to be returned null. Okay. So we can also write it like this or else what we are going to do. So we are going to create an reference of the student registration inside. Okay. So then I'm going to write sr equal to null. Okay. So here I'm just going to store the values into the SR. Okay, so I'm going to store the value into the SR. Okay, so instead of writing like this, SR equal to new students registration. Okay, so SR equal to new students registration. Okay, so once that is a data is present, it is going to be stored on the RS, sorry, SR, sorry, SR. Okay, so SR is nothing but student registration. It's going to be store the values in the SR and finally we are going to return it. Okay, so finally this is the closing brackets of this particular method. Before this particular method we are going to write sr. That's it. So we return the query, we return the method which is going to return the values based upon the student id. The next one we are going to see is returning the students or returning all the data. Whatever the data we are having on this particular table. Okay, so what we are going to do, so here you see this method is going to be return list of student registration. So that what we need to do, so we need to create one local reference inside this. Okay, so inside this we are going to write one local references. So I'm just going to create one local reference variable of this same type. Okay, students registration is sorry, I'm just going to write student regi equal to new array list. Okay, so here I'm just going to whatever the data I'm going to get, I'm going to store it on the student regi. It is type of list of student registrations. Okay, so once I'm adding all the data into this student regi, finally I'm going to return it. Okay, so for that, what I'm going to do, the same thing, we are going to write the query SQL equal to, we are going to return the entire query, all the query, right? Okay, so that I'm going to use a select star from the table name. What is the table name here we are having? The table name here we are having a registration. Okay, so here I'm going to write the table name select star from registration, and then that's it. Okay, so we are going to write the try block, try with resources block. So inside this, so we are going to write the prepare statement. Okay, so here I'm going to write prepared statement, prepare statement. So PS equal to, I'm going to write the query, right? Okay, so who is going to hold the key? Who is going to hold the key? Check it. Con, right? The con is holding the key, right? Con dot prepared statement. Okay, so inside this, I'm just going to pass the SQL query, what I returned over here. Okay, so now you see, once the query is going to be get executed, we are going to get the list of data, right? Okay, so I'm going to hold the list of data in the result set. Okay, result set rs equal to, okay, so who is holding the key? PS is holding the key, right? So PS dot execute query, execute query. Okay, so once the line is going to be get executed, sorry, it is a result set, result set. Ah, okay. So once the query is going to be get executed, we are going to get all the data, right? So whenever I'm going to get all the data, so we are going to add the values into the array list. So this array list values. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to check whether the data is present or not. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to use while rs dot next method. If that is a data is present, what we are going to do, we are going to add the value into the array list. Okay, so that I'm creating one reference of this Pojo classes, the students registration, SR data equal to new. Okay, so here I'm going to pass the values SR dot student new student registration. Inside this, I'm just going to be use RS is holding the entire data, right? Inside this, I'm just going to fetch all the values. RS dot get int. Okay, so get int of 1. Okay, so the next one is what? Name, right? Okay, so here RS dot get string. So of the name which we are having is second one is name, right? The third one is what? Department. Okay, so RS dot get string of the column name is 3. Okay, so now you see the entire data we are going to be passed to this particular object. So you need to ensure that, so this student registration constructor will having the same order ID, student name, department, and also for the tables, database tables will having the same order, student ID, name, department. Okay, so why? Because so here we are going to pass the values in the right order. Okay, one is for ID, two is for um, name, 3 is for department. Okay, likewise, the same order we need to maintain on two things. One is on the constructor, another one is on the table. So now you see, we are going to get the values. So once we are going to get the values, okay, so in the while loop, out of the while loop, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to store the values. Whatever the data I'm going to add in the SR, I'm just going to add it in the student regi. Okay, so here you see student regi. Okay, so student regi is what? It is array list object. Okay, so as you know that list will have the add method, so that I'm just going to add inside this, I'm just going to pass sr data, sr data. Now we are going to whatever the data. So first it is going to be read the first record. Okay, so it's going to be, that means it is be written true. Once it is true, it get inside. So then we are going to get the first student's record. So once we got the first student's record, SR data is holding the first student's record, then we are adding it. After that, again it is going to be check is that any other next record is there. If it is true, it get inside. So and it is going to be written, and it is going to be written the second student's data. So it is going to be hold by this first column name, second column name, third column name. Okay, so ID, name, department. It's going to hold the second student's data. That will be passed to SR data. Then SR data is going to be add that second student's data into the list object, students registration list object. Okay, so once everything is done, once it is going to be false means the all the data is added into the students regi object. Okay, so now finally the students regi object is having the data. So what we are going to do, so we are going to return the values where this particular method is going to be in. The particular method is end on here. Before that, what we are going to do, so we need to write the return statement. Inside this return statement, we are going to write the students regi. So when this particular method is going to be returned, is going to be when this particular method is going to be get called, it is going to be returned the entire data which is present on this particular table. Okay, so now we are going to perform this update operation. In the same update operations, we are going to write the query now. Okay, so we are going to write the query string SQL equal to, so in this double quotes, I'm going to write the query update table name. What is a table name? So it is better to copy this table name. Why? Because if there is any errors, mistake or spelling mistake is there means, so you may not, it is very difficult for you to identify. Okay, so better to write this table name just by copying and paste. Okay, so update table name and then set. Okay, so we are going to change the name and department means. Okay, so what is the column name we are having? For this name, column is name itself. Name equal to question mark. And then the second one is department, right? Department. Okay. So department equal to question mark. So then where, so I'm going to get the student ID, where student ID is equal to question mark. Okay. So here I'm going to pass the values for all this question mark. For that, first I need to write a try with resources block. So inside this try with resources block, we are going to write the prepare statement. Okay, so we are going to write the prepare statement. PS equal to, so what is the key? The key is nothing but con. In the above, you find, so what is the key is? The key is what? Con. Okay, so con is object. Okay, so of the connection. Okay, so here key is con for opening the database. Sorry, con. Okay, so con dot, what is the method? It's a prepare statement. Prepare statement. Here inside this, I'm going to pass the query. Okay, so now you see once it is done. Okay, so then I'm going to use PS. Okay, so here you see instead you don't want to give the question mark over here. It is a try with resources block. Okay, we need to pass the values for the all the question mark. Okay, ps dot, what is the first question mark? It is a name, right? Okay, so we need to pass a name. So it is a string. Okay, so string. Inside this, I'm just going to pass the first values. First, for the first question mark, I'm going to pass the name. Okay, so here you see student registration is going to be this update student is going to be receive argument as student registration. It is a Pojo class. So for accessing the values which I'm going to receive for this update students, I'm going to use the SR update. Okay, so it's going to hold the values. Okay, so here I'm going to pass SR update dot get. So here name, right? Okay, so the first question mark is name. Okay, I'm going to use a name over here. And then, so I'm just going to get the second one, that is a department. So that is ps dot set string. So I'm going to pass the second one, 2 comma. Okay, so that second question mark is a department. Okay, so SRU update, SRU update dot get department. Okay, so get department. Okay, so for the third question mark is ID, right? Okay, so here I'm going to pass CPS dot, I'm going to use set int. It is an integer. Okay, so it's in third question mark, right? 3 comma. So SRU update dot get ID. Done. Okay, so once we pass all the values to the question mark, so now it is ready to execute, perform the execute operation. So that I'm going to use ps dot execute update. Okay, so once we done the update operations, what we are going to do, so we are going to perform the remaining delete operations. Okay, so in case if you want to display the information whether it is inserted successfully or not, you can use this int I in I equal to, you can pass the values and then check it. So if I is greater than 0, it is inserted successfully. If it is less than 0, the error in the insertion operation. Okay, so in previous JDBC operations, we use this method. Okay, so here I'm going to leave it as it is. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move to this deletion operation. In deletion operations, what we are going to do? We are going to same thing. We are going to write the SQL operation string SQL equal to in the double quotes. I'm just going to write delete from table name. What's the table name? It's a registration. Okay, so registration where ID equal to what's the column name? The column name is what? Student ID. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this column name over here. Student ID equal to question mark and then semicolon. Okay, so now you see what I'm going to do. I'm just going to write the try with resources block. So here I'm just going to use a try with resources block. So try. So in this, I'm going to write the query. Okay, so what's the query? So prepare statement ps equal to, so who is holding the key? Con is holding the key. Con dot prepare statement. Okay, so here we are going to pass the SQL query, that is we are stored on the SQL variable, and then once it is done, execution is done successfully. Okay, so for performing the execution, we are going to use ps dot execute update. Okay, done. Okay, so here put semicolon. Okay, so let's check if the execution is done successfully. We need to intimate the user, right? So for that, I'm just going to put int I is equal to ps execute. Okay, so if the I values is greater than uh, 0, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to print in this is out in update done successfully. Update operation done successfully. In case if there is any error, I'm just going to use else block. I'm going to print sys out error in error in updation. Likewise, I'm going to do it on the delete operations too. Okay, so I'm just going to store the values into the one variable int I equal to aps dot execute update. Here I'm going to check the condition. Okay, so if I is greater than 0, I is greater than 0, I'm just going to print the message that is deletion is successfully. Successfully. So if there is any error, what I will do? Okay, so I'm going to pass else block. Inside this, I'm just going to print sys out error in deletion. Okay, so as of now, we finish all the CRUD operations on the DAO implementation. Let's just go to work. Just recall all the what I written over here is. So first I created the connection con equal to null, and then inside this constructor I'm going to receive the con as an argument. Then I'm going to pass the values from the local argument to this global variable con. Then we are having the add students. Inside this add students, what I written, so I'm use the throws SQL exceptions. Okay, so this method is going to be throws SQL exception. Here I'm just going to write the SQL query. Okay, so inside this SQL query, I pass the two argument. One is a name and department. Now we want to perform this insert operations. For that, I'm just going to use a try with resources. So inside this, I'm going to use a prepare statement. PS equal to con dot prepare statement. For performing the insert operation, we need to open the database, right? For that, we need the key, right? So the key is going to be stored on the con dot prepare statement. Then we are going to pass the SQL, so which we returned over here. And then we are going to use the statement dot generated key. Okay, so when there is an insertion is going to be happen, we are having the student ID column and the registration table, which is going to be auto incremented. Okay, so once we are going to execute this query, this two datas, okay, so it is going to be generate the auto incremented key, right? So we are going to get the auto incremented key. Okay, so then we are going to use this statement dot return generated keys. This statement is going to be written the auto incremented key. Now PS is holding the queries as well as the particular conditions what we written over here. So then we are going to use PS dot set string, and then we are going to pass the values for the first question mark, and then we are going to pass the values for the second question mark. Okay, SR is holding the data. So that SR dot get student is going to be written the student's name. SR dot get student department, it is going to be written the department. So now you see we return this query. Okay, so now we need to execute this query. For that we are going to use PS dot execute update. So once we successfully get executed, we need to get the auto generated key, right? Okay, so for that I'm going to use a try with resources. Inside this I'm going to use a result set rs equal to ps is the key query, right? Okay, so inside this I'm just going to use a method called ps dot generated keys. Okay, so get generated keys, it is going to be return the values. Okay, so it's going to be stored on the rs. So in this rs we are going to check the condition if it is data is present or not. If the data is presented, we are going to pass the values to this sr dot set id. Okay, so inside this we are going to pass sr dot get int of 1. Okay, so that we are going to get this auto generated key. Okay, so here in case if you want to display after the performing the insert operations, you can just pass the value. You can just call this particular method. You can call this particular method and you can pass the id over here. Okay, so or else we can pass call this particular method through main class. Okay, so let's move to this next one, get student by ID. So here you see we return the method with a signature like this. Okay, so this method is going to be return the student ID. And then here this method name is what? To get student ID. It's going to be pass ID as an argument. It's going to throw SQL exception. Okay, so here we want to store the values which is written by the query, right? Okay, so that we are going to locally we created the Fojo classes object student registration SR equal to none. Okay, then we are going to write the query. Okay, so then we are going to write the try with the resources. Inside this, we are going to write the prepare statement PS. The key to open the database is gone. And then we are going to write the query. In the prepare statement, we are going to pass the query. Okay, so now you see we are going to pass the values to the particular question mark which is student ID. So that I'm just going to use ps dot set int 1 comma, there is a first question mark, right? 1 comma ID which I'm going to receive through as an argument to this particular method. So once we are going to receive the argument, we need to ready to execute this query. Okay, so we are going to use the ps dot execute query. So it is going to be return the values in the result set. So that we are going to use a result set rs. Then we are going to check if rs dot next, if that is a values is present, so it's going to store the values into this constructor, Pojo class constructor. We are going to pass all the values to the constructor. Now the SR is holding the values. Now we are going to, SR is nothing but it is object of Pojo classes, SR. Okay, so now finally we are returning the SR. Okay, so SR is nothing but student registration type. Now we are moving to this get all students. Okay, so here you see we created the get all students method. Inside this get all students method, we are having the list students registration get all students through SQL exception. Okay, so here this method is going to be return the list of student. Okay, so that we are going to create the same type inside this particular method list students registration object equal to new array students registration, and then we are going to create query. We are written this query select star from registration. It is going to be written more than one data, right? Okay, that's the purpose why we are using the list over here. So then we are going to write the try with the resources block. Inside this try with the resources block, we are going to use the prepare statement ps equal to con is nothing but is a object for opening this database. Con dot prepare statement. Then inside this prepare statement, we are going to pass a SQL as a query, and then we are going to use result set. As you know that for performing the select operations, we need to use the select execute query. Okay, so ps dot execute query. I am going to store the result on rs. Now you see we are going to call rs dot next to check is that any record is there or not. In case if it is record is that, it is going to return true. Then we are going to get inside. Then we are going to get rs dot get int of 1, 2, 3. Likewise, we are going to pass the values to the constructor. Now SR data is going to be hold the entire data. Okay, then we are going to use student reg dot add. Student reg is not nothing but it is a list of student array list object. Okay, so dot add method. As you know that array list method is having the add method. Inside this, I'm just going to pass SR's or data. So finally, after executing all the data or after it is returning all the data. Okay, so all the data is now present on the student register. Now we need to return the student reg. Okay, so before this closing bracket, what we need to do, so we need to write this return statement, return student reg. Okay, so now the data, whatever the data we are having on the student reg is going to be returned. Okay, now we are moving to this next method, that is update method. In this update method, we return the method signature like this, public void, and then public void update students. The values we are going to pass is going to be type of student registration Pojo classes, and it is going to throw an SQL exception. So we are going to write the SQL queries over here. Okay, select update. table name, set column name. What are the column name? We are going to perform the update operation. That column name we have perform given on here, and then where condition student ID equal to question mark. Then we are going to write the try with the resources block. Inside this try with the resources block, I am just going to write the prepare statement ps equal to con prepare statement, and I am going to pass the SQL query. Okay, now we need to pass the question values for all the question mark, so that PS is holding the query. Okay, so that PS dot, the first one is a name, so that we are going to use a set string. Okay, so we are going to pass values for the first question mark. We are going to put 1, and then SR dot update is holding the entire data. So we are going to use the SR update dot get student, so that the name which is going to hold by SR update, it is going to be assigned to the 1. Likewise, we are going to get the values for the 2, that is a department. Okay, so we are going to pass the values for the second question mark, so that we are going to put 2 over here. SR update dot get student department. Okay, so SR update dot get student department is going to be assigned to this second question mark. Likewise, we need to pass for the third question mark, so that the third one is what ID, it is going to be int, so that ps dot set int 3 comma SR update get ID. Okay, so now we received all the values. Now it is ready to execute, perform the execute operation, so that the ps is holding the values, so that ps dot execute update is going to be return the values, which is going to be stored on the I variable. So if the I values is greater than 0, what we are going to do? So we are going to perform we are just going to print the information update operation done successfully, or else we are going to perform error in operations. Okay, now we are moving to this delete operations. In the delete operations, what we did, so we return the method signature like this. So we are going to use the public void delete students, and then we are going to pass ID as an argument. Then it is going to throw an SQL exception. Okay, now we are going to write the query for the performing the deletion operation. We are going to use select SQL equal to delete from student registration, where student ID equal to the values which you are going to receive from here. So that we are going to put the question mark now. Okay, so then that should be followed by we are having the try with resources block. In the try with resources block, we are going to write the prepare statement ps object equal to con is nothing but it is a key to open the database, right? Con dot prepare statement. Inside this, we are going to pass the query. So now we need to execute this query. Okay, so here, so we did one mistake. We are not passed the values to this particular question mark, right? Okay, so here I'm going to write this. Okay, so that is ps ps dot set int. Okay, set int. Okay, so it is the first one, first question mark. Okay, so id is the values we are passing. Okay, so now you see we are passing the values to this particular question mark. So then we are going to write the ps dot execute update. So then we are going to check this condition. If the I is greater than 0, then we are going to print deletion is done successfully, or else the error in the deletion. Okay, so now you see we are going to make a call to this all this grid operations method, all this five operations, one, two, three, four, five, right? Okay, so we are going to make a call to this all these five methods through the main classes. So for that, we need this object of this particular class, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do, so here instead of creating inside this try block, I'm going to create under the main block. So here I'm going to create an object like this. Okay, done. So now we are going to, first I'm going to make it as null. Okay, now I'm going to make a call to this all this particular method one by one. Okay, so for that was first I'm going to write a while loop. So inside this while loop, I'm just going to write a true in case if the user is going to give the option which is going to be one means. So what I'm going to do? Okay, so for that I'm just going to give this options to the user side. So if the user is going to give one means add, if the user is going to give 2 means retrieve operations by ID, and then 3 means for update, 4 is for delete, 5 is for retrieve all the records, 6 is for exit. Okay, so I'm just going to print the information. Okay, so enter your choice. Enter your choice. Okay, so here I'm just going to use 1 for add, and then slash n, 2 for get all data, sorry, get by ID, and then slash n, 3 is for get all data, and then 4 is for update, and 5 is for deletion. Delete. And 6 is for exit. Okay, done. Okay, so now I'm going to run this main method. Check what error messages. So yes, we have done the switch block, right? Okay. I think closing bracket, main method, and okay. So we put this while loop out of this main method. We need to put it inside. Okay. We need to store it on one variable, which I'm going to use is int choice. So here I'm going to read the input from the user. For that we need the scanner classes. I'm just going to create the scanner classes on here. Scanner is equal to new scanner. Inside this I'm just going to use system.in. Okay. There. Here I'm going to import these packages. Okay. So if the values is given by the user, then I'm going to use the switch block. Inside the switch block, I'm going to pass the choice. Okay. So if the case is going to be 1 means, so what? So we are going to read all the input from the user. One is name, another one is department. So for that, I'm just going to give the variables name equal to s dot next next method, and then I'm just going to ask the user to enter the name, right? Before I need to intimate to the user, right? So enter your name. Enter your name. Okay. So once the user is going to give the values, then we are going to get the another values, which is nothing but department. Okay. So here I'm just going to pass enter the department. Enter the once the user is going to give the values, then we are going to have the variable string department equal to s dot next method. Now we need to pass the values to this Pojo classes through Pojo classes. So I'm just going to create a reference of this Pojo classes on here. Student registration SR equal to new student registration. Now you see we are going to pass only name and department through the Pojo classes. In this Pojo classes, if you see, so we created one empty constructor and constructor with all argument. So now we are going to create with constructor with only two arguments. Okay, so here I'm going to create the constructor with two argument to pass only these two values. Okay, so now you see we created constructor with two argument. Now moving to this Pojo classes, here I'm going to receive name and department that I'm going to pass it to this Pojo classes. Okay, so here I'm going to pass the values. Okay, so here I'm going to use S or sorry SR1 student registration SR1 equal to new student registration. Here we are going to pass only name and department, right? Name and department. Now SR1 object is holding the name and department. Now we are going to pass the values to this add method which is there in the DAO implementation. Here is in the DAO implementations we are having the method which is add students, right? Okay, so I'm just going to call this add students method on here. Okay, so add students in the bracket, I'm going to pass SR1 and then I'm going to put the semicolon. Why it is throwing error means we need to call this method by using the object of this particular class. Okay, so what is object of this particular class? DAO implementation. DO implementation dot add students. Okay, done. So why it is throwing error means because it's surrounded by try and catch block. Okay, sorry, this method is going to throw an SQL exception, right? So we are going to surround this entire block with try and catch block, right? Okay, so the statement, whatever the statement I written over here, I'm going to surround this entire statement under try and catch block. Okay, so here you see I've put under the try and catch block. Now I'm going to use a catch. Inside this catch block, I'm going to use exception. Okay, so here I'm going to throw E. Okay, so that's it. Or else I'm just going to use sys out. I'm just going to print the E. Okay, that's it. Okay, so now you see we finish this insert operations. Once we done, we are going to put the break statement over here. So now what we are going to do, we are going to check whether this insert operation is done or not. Before that, I'm just going to write one more statement. That is a case 2, which is going to be what? Sorry, case 2, which is for retrieving the students by ID, right? Okay, so just I finish all the operations, then I will proceed to this execution part. Okay, so now I'm going to read the ID, right? Okay, so I'm just going to write enter the student ID. You want to perform this retrieval operations. Okay, so here I'm going to surround it under the tribe, under this double quotes. Now I'm just going to store the values in one variable, that is ID equal to s dot next, s dot next in. Then I'm just going to make a call to this particular method. So which we are having in the DAO implementation class. DAO implementation dot get student by ID. Inside this, I'm going to pass the ID, right? Okay, so now we are going to display the information. Okay, so I'm going to display under sysout. In the system.out.println, I'm printing the values. Sysout inside this. Why? Because this get student by ID is returning student ID object that I'm going to display it on here. Okay, so then break, save. Okay, now we are going to move to this get all students data. Okay, so get all students data is very simple. In the case 3, I'm just going to just use system.out.println. I'm going to call DAO dot get DAO impl dot get all students. Okay, done. So then break. Okay, so then case 4, I'm just going to perform what is the case 4 operations. We are going to perform the update operations, right? Okay, it's the same thing. I'm just going to get this enter the student ID you want to perform update operation. After seeing the statement, user is going to perform give the ID, right? That we are going to store it on one variable. Int ID equal to s dot next int. Okay, so then I'm going to get the name and department. Okay, so instead of typing all these informations, already we received the name and department while we are performing the adding operation. I'm just copying this and I'm going to paste it over here. Done. Okay, so ID 1, name 1, department 1. Okay, now we are going to pass all the values to this update operations. So here, I'm going to store the values in student registration object sr equal to new student registration. Here I'm going to pass all the values. Student registration. Here we are going to pass the ID and name, right? ID 1, name 1, department 1. Everything we are storing on one object, that is SR1. Okay, so here we are going to pass the SR1 object to this is SR1 object to this update DAO implementation. Okay, so DAO IMPL DAO IMPL dot update students. So here I'm going to pass it. Okay, so why it is doing SR update. Okay, done. So why? Because we are already using it. Okay, SR1 update. Now you see we are passing all the information. Then we are going to put the break statement. Okay, so then case 5 is for deletion operations. Okay, so here I'm just going to get the ID from the user. So which we already written, so that I'm just going to copy the code, enter the ID you want to perform delete operation. Delete operation. Okay, so here ID delete. Okay, so here I'm going to pass the ID to the deletion method. Okay, so DAO implementation dot delete student. Here I'm going to pass the ID. Okay, now once the perform deletion operation is performed, we are going to put the break statement. So in the default statement, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write break statement. In case the user is not given anything, I'm just going to put the break statement over here. Okay, so and also case 6. What is the case 6? Case 6 is nothing but it is exit, right? Okay, so we need to write the case 6. So I'm just going to put the break statement. That's it. Okay, so here I'm going to print the statement. If the user is not given the choice which is given on the above, enter the valid choice. Enter valid choice from 1 to 6. Okay, done. Okay, so now we are going to execute this query. Let's check whether everything is working fine or not. So here you see it is asking the options. Enter your choice. 1 for add, 2 for get by ID, 3 for get all, 4 for update, 5 for deletion. Okay. So first I'm going to press 1. Okay. So it is asking my name. So I'm just going to give Vinod Kumar Selvarsan. Vinod Kumar Selvarsan. Okay. Now I'm going to run this query. Before that, I'm going to run this query. Okay. You see we are having only two records. Pass the name and then department is computer science. Okay, now you see it's going to throw an null pointer exception. So what it is, because the implementation is null. Why? So I'll do little changes on this code. I'm just going to create all the statement under this try block. Okay, so no need to create a separate try block. So I'm just going to write all this while statement, all this statement inside what we are having over here till try block, till while loop. I'm just going to be cut and ditch it over here. Okay. Okay, done. I hope this code will work now. Okay, so the mistake which I did is, so here you see com.mysql. I gave SQL. Okay, so mysql.cj.jdbc driver. I hope now it will work fine. Yes, it is asking the details. One, name is going to be Vinod, and then department, I'm just going to give it as computer science. Now you see the data is get added successfully. We are going to check it by giving 3. Okay, so here you see it is displaying all the data what we are having on this database. Okay, so final data which we given is Vinod Kumar Vinod and the name is computer science. Okay, so I'm going to add one more data. One, the name of the student is going to be Ashok, and then department he is going to be mechanical. Okay, so now you see we added it. Okay, so now we are going to use the option 3 to check it all the data is stored on the database or not. Okay, so final data we stored is also right. Okay, so here you see the data is getting inserted. Now we are going to perform this deletion operation. Okay, so that is our update operation. Okay, so get all is done. Get by ID. Okay, second operation get by ID. I'm just going to give the name ID is going to be what? 3. Okay, so here you see the ID which we are having on the 3 is Vinod and department is computer science. Okay, so now I'm just going to give the fourth options for update operations. It is asking the ID, do you want which ID you want to update. I'm just going to give one and the name which I'm going to give is Vinod Kumar Silver RSM. Okay, department is CLC. Okay, now you see we are going to give option 3 to check the data is get updated or not. Yes, it's get updated. Now we are going to perform the delete operation. Enter this ID you want to perform the delete. I'm just going to give 2. Okay, so now I'm just going to perform deletion operation. Here you see it is displaying information deletion is done successfully. Now we are going to pass 3. Okay, so now you see 1 and then 3. 2 is missing. Okay, 4. Okay, so here you see we are going to check it on the database as well. I'm just going to run this standard client. Here you see 1, 3, 4. 2 is get deleted. Hopefully you understand this all CRUD operations in the JDBC by using DAO layer. Hopefully you like this video. In case if you like this videos, please click the subscribe and bell button. Thank you.